Versus the grip. James Walters.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another podcast with bRho Talk. Today's a special show. We have a guest with us today, but we're going to get to that in a minute. First, I want to recognize my brothers Mark, Ike, and bRho, and our special guest who we'll introduce in a second. But before we even get to that, how y'all brothers doing today?
Was good up to a little while ago.
Yeah. B, man, if you wanna lead that, man, because it's a tough one for me. So I'm for all of us, really.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna let you lead that one, bro.
Yeah. So just wanted to start the show off with a moment of silence for anybody. I mean, anybody in the city of Rochester, state of New York, and abroad. You know what I mean? The name Mother Iris Bannister is, you know what I mean, synonymous with class, grace, sophistication, education, motherhood, you know what I mean, just excellence. And she's taking a rest today. So we want to just, send love, light, condolences, prayers, and, all sorts of energy to wrap around the family. But we wanted to just take a moment to recognize a moment of silence in her honor, because again, she's meant so much to so many and all of us personally. I know myself and Vincent, we go back to the Frederick Douglass days of Miss Bannister being she was my house administrator, and for each, I'm talking early 90s. So those for each and every life she touched, man, we just want to recognize a moment of silence in honor of the great Mother Iris Bannister. Thank you all for, again, if you joined in with us for that moment of silence. That is like I got the news and got nauseous. That's how that kind of news hits you, is like it was a gut punch. So we know that for her family and her children, it's we can only imagine, what I mean, with that moment, what they're going through. So as difficult as it is for us, we're sending them all kinds of prayers and energy on today, man. Simeon, Ethan, Tommy, we love y'all.
Yeah.
Again, just know that we're here for y'all.
Sure. B, thank you for doing that, man. Really do appreciate that. So for today's show, we have with us Vincent French, Vincent Isaiah French, and he's somebody who's been in the comments on our show on a very consistent basis, has offered some great comments, some great feedback, and asked us not too long ago, like, hey, y'all might as well just have me on the show. And we're like, yeah, should have you on the show. Because we want to hear about all the great things that you're doing in the community. I know that you had put out, Vincent, that you were changing roles and going to Monroe County Public Defender's Office. And I'm reading like Uncle Shay Shay right now. And as a diversity coordinator, it really playing a pivotal role in inclusivity, cultural competence within the legal system. Anybody that's listening and watching knows that is needed 110%. And also here, Vincent, you say that you strive to ensure equitable representation and support for all communities in Monroe County. So we want to give you a bRho Talk welcome. Welcome to the show. And the first thing I think we should kick off with is just tell us a little bit about who you are. I know you know bRho from middle school. Rochester, we know, is a small place.
Yeah.
Can be a small place and a big place, depending on where you're coming from. But let's just start there. Just, tell us your story.
Where I began, growing up in Rochester, I moved here with my brothers and my sister about 88. We came from Boston. And so I recently had a post recently where I connected with a social worker. She was responsible. Her name is Audrey Cummings. She was responsible for our adoption. She was doing a pass-through in Boston. at the airport and saw our story on WBZN, a CBS affiliate with the Jack Williams Wednesday's Child, and came back to Rochester. And at the time, of our adoption, we were very adamant about us sticking together. I'm a triplet, so there's three, there's three of us, and I have an older brother named Govinda and an older sister named Sita. And typically in those cases, they split you up and let God figure it out. And so, that was my assumption. That's what, that's my prior knowledge. But when I really connected with Audrey Cummings recently, I really kind of heard the scope of that. And she confirmed it. She said, you guys are going to be going, like one of y'all was going to be going to Kentucky, another one in California. Like they were going to split y'all triplets up. One of y'all was going to go down to Atlanta. Two of y'all was going to go to Connecticut. Like there was nothing like in Massachusetts or in New York that was, going to keep us together. So gratefully, we my mom, my adopted mom, Linda French, and her late husband, her first late husband, Arnold French, thought it well to open up their home and hearts and adopt us. And so I grew up on the Northeast Side, Hudson Avenue, 14621, group 14621 neighborhood. Went to 36 school, transferred there mid fourth grade year to 41 school, finished up there in sixth grade, went to Douglas. That's when I connected with bRho and his brother Damiano, for the seventh grade, Blue House, Mr. Bona, rest his peace. And then I transferred to Red House.
Mr. Bona was a good man.
Yes, he was. Solid guy. I appreciated him because he always did the rap battles on Friday. So, he was about the culture, and elevating student voice in that space even before he became popular, and then we went on to Edison Tech for my 9th and 12th grade year there. And again, that's when I ran into bRho there. And, just been kind of in the neighborhood and all that time, growing up in church on Columbia Avenue, 44 Columbia Avenue there at the old Friendship Baptist Church, now called Faith, Hope, and Charity Worship Center, underneath the leadership of the Crocker family there. Just being showered with love and whatnot. But, one of the things that, growing up in the city, especially in the inner city, there's that criminal element, you know what I mean? And especially coming from a very traumatic background as I came from, being in foster care for a very long time. I was in foster care from probably 3 months, 3-month-old foster child, you know what I mean? All the way until 88. So do the math, I was born in 82. I was 6-7 years in foster care, it was a long time. But, being in that situation, I found myself looking outside myself for external validations, and so doing things to compromise my individuality, my safety, my freedom even. And I was getting in and out of trouble. And each and every single time, at 12, I tell the story, at 12, I want to become a teacher. But at 16, I found myself in the Democrat Chronicle for third-degree burglary charge. Square peg trying to fit into a round hole. And that was just one thing that I got caught on, but it was a bunch of things, But every time, during high school, from 9th grade all the way to my senior year, my grades would just dip, coming from a high honor roll student, trying to fit in. Never having really anyone there to say, you don't need to fit in, or nor should you try. Not knowing that in time, your gifts will make room for you in a space and place where you can be yourself unapologetically, intentionally you, And so fortunate and blessed and lucky, I was able to realize that dream of becoming a teacher, educator, cutting my teeth in New York City, in Brooklyn, the Bronx, going to become a dean of students and discipline, and then come back home to work in my neighborhood at 14621 at School 8. Then went to Edison Tech, reconnect the Alumni Association that I founded in 2006, reconnecting over 5,200 alumni dating back to 1947. And then becoming the first Black administrator in Pittsburgh Central School District as Director of Equity and Inclusivity. And then from that point, when that happened, like I said, I was in Democrat Chronicle for that. But then fast forward, I'm in Democrat Chronicle again, being hailed as a hero of sorts, in a more positive light when I went to Pittsburgh. So from that, narrative means nothing when actions echo truth, And then I got a call. I didn't even apply. I was just, praying, asking the Lord for guidance and clarity. And a call came through. I heavily believe in the call, the commission and the confirmation. And so a call came through to say, hey, you want to apply to work for us, whatever. So, going through the interview, at the time I was still in Pittsburgh, and they were looking for a diversity coordinator for their office, which was work that was being spearheaded by the Monroe County legislator. being pushed by the Monroe County legislator to be able to diversify the public defender's office, and then and I ended up getting a job. I got the job April 17th, 2023. The job offer came through. It's important that I mention because that same week, that Saturday, would have been the anniversary of me being in the Democrat and Chronicle. So April 22nd, 1999, I was in Democrat and Chronicle. So that Monday and then that Sunday of last year would have been the anniversary of the article. So it's like, here I am now going back to the office to help advocate for people and work with people that advocated for me. And even in the space right now, there are a few attorneys that were actually my attorneys. So I got a chance to tell them thank you. So here I am now, working within the public defender's office, ensuring that our clients get a fair shake. And I've said in various spaces because, oftentimes people in the communities or in the judicial system often see you, when you made the worst mistake of your life on the worst day of your life kind of thing, and not as a human being, and so coming from that, having that in my background, knowing what that looks like, what that feels like, but also finding redemption and finding purpose has allowed me to move into this space with a bit more confidence and assurance, but also to know that this is the work, right? This is the work, and that nothing you've gone through is for waste. It all comes full circle. I don't believe in coincidences. I know many people believe in coincidences or things just happen for no reason, and I respect that. But in life, I have too many examples to show me otherwise for me to hang on to that belief. Because a lot of things are like full circle for me right now. So,
Vincent, at what point did you see, or at what point did like the shift happen, right? So at what point did you go from being in the DNC for this thing that was negative that happened to being in the DC with something that's positive that happened? At what point is it like a specific story, specific moment where like the light just clicked on and you're like, all right, I need to make a change?
Well, it was always there. I think even when I was, on my worst days, I always would tell myself, that I was meant for greater. I knew I was meant for greater.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in the church, being prophesied on, and spoken to, that, it was actually been at the time, Evangelist Hartsfield. Now Bishop Hartsfield. When he was just starting out, he pulled me out of the crowd. I was like 12 years old, and he said, you have a call in your life. And you're going to be like Paul, but there's a call in your life. And so, even though I found myself in trouble, I would still keep pushing. I think for me, what the pinnacle moment of change for me was in my senior year of high school in 2001. April, I think it happens in April 18th, 2001. I found myself incarcerated in the Monroe County Correctional Facility in Henrietta. Having to do a year. I already had time in on it. It was like a violation of probation, but being in that space and journaling and writing, had really put me in a space where that this wasn't my life. I had an inmate in there. Something happened. Like the inmates we had lost our TV, or something like that. And remember, his name was Deputy Neva. And I walk up to him. I probably was there for about 3 weeks at that time. I was still new. And I don't know what I said to him, but I started engaging in conversation with him. And he ended up getting his TV back. We ended up getting our TV back, our TV privileges back. And he said, you should thank this young man here because the 80 of y'all in this pod got your TV back because of him. And one dude looked at me and was like, dang, you don't even belong here, man. And I'm like, honestly, none of us do. And that kind of was it for me when I realized that we could be doing more for each other, And so after leaving there in October 21st, 2001, I started getting my stuff together, really starting to apply for school, really just applying myself in those spaces, and getting out of Rochester for a moment, not leaving, not getting out to like leave, but just taking a breather, going into the wilderness of sorts, gathering myself to come back stronger and better.
Yeah, I think it's real powerful what you said, right, is that it took someone else to say that you don't belong here, but the fact that you answered back, you don't either. Yeah. Like, I think that's like a huge moment right there, because I think hopefully for that person, they took that same advice, was like, yeah, I don't belong here either. Like, maybe I could do something better. Yeah. And so you're working with people on a day-to-day basis or working with families, like how does that conversation go? Because I'm sure that comes up again. It's like you should even like be in this position. No, I shouldn't say that. Like it sucks you're in this position, but there's greater for you, right? Because you said that you kept telling yourself like there's greater for me. There's greater for me.
Yeah. You know, to answer your question, it was a very powerful moment. A powerful moment for me. You know, you know, I post things a lot. I say things a lot. But when I'm speaking to people, I'm really speaking to myself. You know what I mean? Like it's like maybe like you pointing out, but like 5 fingers pointing back at you. I'm really speaking to myself. I'm really pouring into myself. You just happen to benefit from it, but I'm really speaking life into myself, you know, for the purpose. And so it really was an eye opener for me, to just be able to be in that space and to know that there is greater. I mean, it's easier said than done because things did get dark for me throughout that time. You know, as you go through and you're trying to change, that's when the adversary comes through and tries to remind you of who you were when they had the most power over you. You know what I mean? And then also for a lot of individuals within the community, as I'm talking to them, you know, and their families, you know, accountability is key, right? Like you do something, we should be held accountable for that. No person is above the law. No person is above, you know, the biblical law as well. And so we should be held accountable, but it needs to be a restoration, right? Because we all fall short of the glory. But oftentimes in the judicial system here, it's all about punishment. And again, individuals, when they get out, laws have it so that they can never excel. They can never get past. Like everyone wants to be successful. No one wants to be a failure. No one wants to be doing bad, you know, but as Jay said, there's always a righteous reason for sinning. You know what I mean? And we do these things because we don't know what's, you know, we don't know that systemic ignorance. We don't know what's out there. We don't know what's beyond the veil. And no one that we are around often can show us the way out because we're all in the same predicament, you know. And so when you have people in our communities, our elders, that can pour into us and instill a sense of hope and purpose, you know, and show us the way. You know, we don't know. We can't assume that everyone knows. But having those conversations with families and, you know, revealing my own past, and being unapologetically about it, does provide a sense of hope for them, but also continues to reaffirm our purpose in this role.
So we're all of us are educators in the room here, and so you had said something about punishment and how that gets a result, but it doesn't necessarily get a good result. And B, I want to tag you in on this one because you had 2 sons, and you talk about those 2 sons, and you talk about the lessons and, you know, in the ways that you and your wife are bringing them up, man. But I'm curious, man, if you like had any questions in terms of that, like just about like how, like just in the educator world, like how we do restoration, because B, you're doing restoration in a different way with what you're doing. So if you want to talk something about that.
So it's what's interesting is, you know, the number of parallels in terms of just kind of a lot of the things that you were sharing. So April of this year will be 20 years since 20 years ago I caught a charge, you know what I mean? And again, so again, you know the process, right? Or anyone that knows the process, when you're arrested for anything, right? And you're looking at trial, you get a discovery packet, which is all the evidence that the prosecution has against you. So, you know, in the discovery packet is the statement by the quote unquote plaintiff that says he started the fight that I'm facing the felony for.
Yeah.
But you know, to your point, and it just, when you said April, I was like, wow, it made me think about it, you know, and I've always said this: no one is, you know, we often treat people or judge people or perceive people based upon, you know, their worst moment. Like people are way too often, you know, judged based upon you know what I mean, the worst moment in their life. And I think that's, you know what I mean, it's commendable by, you know, for we need folks, and this is why I tell people, this is why we have to be in all of the different spaces, because without not only voices who, who can represent us because they understand our community, I'm not somebody who has not been impacted, right? And because you took it there, and I know, you know what I mean. We don't go there often, but everybody on here is a believer. The Bible says we have not a high priest who's not been touched at all points of our infirmity, right? So he puts us in places. So you went through that because God knew where you'd ultimately end up, and he needed you to go through that. So when he put you where you are now, you know what I mean? There would not only would there be a full circle moment, but if you had gone and again, when I tell y'all this brother been standing on business since middle school, you know what I mean? Him and his brother, I mean, just always forget what they necessarily doing. It was their approach and what they was doing. Like if y'all know his brother Victor, is his twin brother Victor. Like again, these twin brothers was like always like serious. Like they every time you saw them in school, like they was, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's not that they couldn't laugh and joke and play, because we had a lot of good times in school. Yeah. But when it came down to what they were doing, they were always serious about, you know what I mean, whatever it is they were doing. Yeah. And so I say that to say, you know what I mean? If the trajectory you were on had taken you where you are now without that experience, do I have the same kind of empathy or compassion around, you know what I mean, around people who are going through the experiences that you're working with and you're finding them in? So kind of just tying it back to the question that Kareem mentioned as it related to kids and child rearing, it's I take that approach. Like, you know what I mean? I tell people all the time, you can't parent the you out of your kids, right? So it's the truth. You know what I mean? You cannot parent you out of your kid. So Isaac is talking about, some of the sarcasm he sees in his kids, and that apple, we know the tree that came from. You know what I mean? Yeah. I see certain.
That's a tall tree too.
he said that's see, case in point, right? Yeah. Yeah. So when my kids do certain things, you know what I mean? I know exactly where they got it from. Yeah. And I parent them, based upon that, and discipline or respond, and you know what I mean, with a understanding. Like, man, when I was in that space, my wife and I say to our boys all the time, listen, we give y'all a voice. Hmm. I was like, listen, there was no such thing as voice when it was time to drop the hammer. And y'all all know my dad. Y'all all remember my dad when it was time to lay down the law. Yeah. Listen, man, my savior name was Naoki. Listen, and sometimes she wasn't even a savior.
I can't help you.
You know what I mean? So but again, it's because when we reflect on, and you know what I mean, our experiences, we take them and we pay them forward in the space, and I just our community is fortunate to have you know what I mean, operating and working in that capacity, man. And I just before I tie it up, y'all not you know what I mean. If anyone is an Edison alumni, man, they can tell you, man, this brother Vincent has done amazing work and continues to do amazing work with the Edison alumni. You know what I mean? So kudos, hats off to you, brother, man, because you're doing phenomenal work. And again, our community is the better for it.
And I appreciate all the sentiments too, B, but at the end of the day too, I need to say on both of those points, both here in this working as a diversity coordinator within the Public Defender's Office, I consider it an honor. You know what I mean? And for me, it almost was like a Cinderella story, really. Like I might not be here for a long time, but I'm here for a good time. And while I'm here, I'm gonna do the Lord's work. But as far as the Alumni Association go, my dad, he worked at Edison, both at the old Edison when it was on Clifford, and then the new Edison now. So I'm both a legacy and an alumni at the same time. But that work that I do with the Alumni Association is to pour back into a place that has given us in the community so much. And it's not just on me. While I was the founder of the Edison Tech Network, Alumni Network, I'm the co-founder of the Edison Tech Alumni Association, both with the young woman that worked there, Katie Trepanier, and also Jacob Scott, who is the former principal of Edison, who's now the chief of operations for RCSD.
Yes,
but I say all that because, again, no person's an island. No one gets along in the world on their own. And so, this lift of trying to elevate every space I am, the people in it, as where I'm at is, I always say I'm nothing more than a moon, trying to capture the rays of the sun, and reflect the rays of the sun. And so that's what I try to do with the Alumni Association, is try to reflect the greatness that has come from Edison Tech, both yourselves and many other people in our community. Most recently, shout out to Miss June Terry, Kanisha June Terry, opened up the first Black-owned beauty school. Right, she had a salon for years. Her and her husband Jerome, who's also alumni,
yes, sir.
class of '95, I believe, both of them equally.
Good,
but
good brother.
And truly, and and he had his own story. Right, he has his own story. But looking at it now and seeing the impact, and them just now finishing up their first week of teaching. It brings so much hope. And so, I was able to be that, the ribbon cutting, and to elevate her in that space. And again, I just kind of all joy. And that's what it comes down to, is there are a lot of people in our community that are doing wonderful things. And these news stories, they don't capture that. They don't capture that because it's sensational. That doesn't sell papers, fluff pieces. It's all great to have that one fluff piece after like 20 bad stories. But, we start telling more of our stories. And just, you see that in all spaces. We're all connected. Just now you mentioned Miss Bannister, and just, if you knew who she was, you knew who her husband was. If you didn't know who they were, then you knew who the son was, or you knew who the children were. It's like we're all connected here, and it's important that we continue to leverage. And you don't have to have, a big platform. Whatever you have, whatever soapbox you can create that and leverage it for the benefit of other people that comes behind you. And so that's what I've always tried to do. That's what I try to do. I don't want to get all sappy and sentimental, but when I talk about it, it's real. This work is real. And I just think about life. I think about, good and faithful servant, job well done kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want to hear when it's all said and done, when the commander calls your name kind of thing, But we really need to continue to, be there for our students. In this work, I know we're kind of segueing, but in this work, I don't think I would be able to do this job alone if it was just office work. I'm very fortunate that being in Pittsburgh had allowed me to reach, who's going to #1 school district. It was me, and I came there right on the heels of a New York Times article, which highlighted a lot of the racial hurt and harm that has happened in Pittsburgh for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, I was able to leverage that into connecting with all the superintendents across the region, not even across the county. I met Canandaigua, Farmington, so on and so forth, Hilton, and so by being part of the regional equity network, all the superintendents are there, and I was in that space too. And so in this role, I'm able to push into schools across the county now, and also push into communities. When I first started this role here, we had a Know Your Rights, where we partnered with the city of Rochester and the rec centers. Mr. Bliss himself was there as well. And so, that has helped us to be able to engage with the community, educate them on the rights, around the 4th, 5th, 6th Amendment rights, but also sharing about our work that we do with the family court. Because of the funding that we received through the Indigenous Legal Services, it has allowed us now to bring in for the past 2 years social workers and case specialists to serve as mitigation specialists. Something that I wish I had when I was coming up. If someone could have told the story, he was adopted, right? Oh, let's just go back and look at his cases then. Like, I wouldn't have, been through what I've been through, but I kind of all joy. And so with that, we're now able to, if you're with our family borough, we have a subdivision called the Family Defense Unit, and which is headed up by Robert P. Turner, who was actually my attorney back in the day. His wife is the Honorable Karen Bailey Turner, judge.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you know her?
Yep.
Phenomenal woman. and a history maker herself, right? Being Women's History Month and all. But now our office is able to get involved at the earliest notice of a CPS case. So instead of waiting to go to court and then you get a side attorney, if you get a whiff, I think I might be under investigation, we can represent you and be there at the very beginning of that case to ensure that, you know, families stay together, that we can resolve the issues before families are split apart.
Speaking of Edison, real quick, shout out to brother Mark Guthrie, aka Bruiser. He is a honorary Edison alum, and I say that because anybody that knows Edison from the mid '90s on, man, this brother was a fixture there, working with the Edison Tech Step team. You know what I mean? So shout out to this great brother for all the work that he did out at Edison, man.
Yeah,
Bro,
yeah, absolutely.
What's up?
You was stepping?
Oh, man, listen, man. Them boys. I wasn't stepping, but I did my thing a little bit or something, but it wasn't much. But them boys got it all, man.
Okay.
We terrorized. Everybody in Rochester, we terrorized, man. I want to shout out the parents, man, for those guys, because they allow me also to give them a college experience as well, too. You know,
that is what I wanted to touch on.
We take them on campus. They see, they see a lot of things on college campus, man. They loved it. Weekends, in Brockport, we having an event. We have our Black and Gold weekend.
Nice.
They get to come into our Black and Gold for free. You put them to work too, because me, I'm gonna put them to work. Some got to get moved.
Ain't nothing free.
Ain't nothing free. You know what I'm saying?
No free ride here.
But the funny thing about it, none of them could say they ever was hungry, because the bros take care of them. Parents, I got them back to the drop off point, wherever the drop off point is. And shout out to Brockport, because Brockport allow us to do some things back in the day where I know they don't do that no more. I was Brockport trusted me with a lot of things, man, and I never look at it, where I could go and get a van, and I could chauffeur these kids back and forth to Rochester, pick them up, drop them off, type stuff, So I want to shout out to Brockport, man, for giving me, put the confidence within me and the other brothers to do the things that we was doing, because it's also recruitment for the university too. Back then, I never looked at it like that. You know what I'm saying? But they did. So a couple of those guys went to Brockport. A couple of them went to Brockport.
And even if they didn't, right? Again, and so how I met James Waters and Bruiser, like way before ever getting to a college campus, was my younger brother Damiano, who we talked about. He was on the step. He was on the step team from Edison. From Douglas on to Edison. He was on the step team, and so I'd have to either go into the practice and get him from my mom, who would be sending me from the car to go get him up, or when my mom would pick him up from wherever the drop off point was, and he talked about this college campus. So, and I got the exposure that these young men got, and I'm saying that in light of the tour that A Different World cast is currently on, because so many Black and brown people, the first glimpse they had into college was through that show.
First glimpse into an HBCU, man. Like,
yeah, you know what I mean?
HBCU because of that show.
Right. So when you see something,
glasses that had shades on them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Dwayne, baby.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? What Bruiser and those brothers were doing, giving youth an opportunity to be exposed and have their eyes open to a world that they didn't know existed outside of that. You know what I mean? That seed, no matter where they ended up going, was planted by way of the impact, and relationship that those brothers who were pouring back into, and you know what I mean. And we always say that, you know, Sankofa is reaching back
Yeah,
to go forward. You know what I mean? That's you know what I mean. That is the sentiment of our community. So you know what I mean. Again, whether it's the work that you're doing on the alumni association, you know what I mean, network, you know, at the public defender's office, you know what I mean. Like it ties in again, and that's why, you know, brothers like bRho, you know what I mean. James Waters. Again, there's so many. I remember, man. I remember Lenny. Lenny was, you know what I mean. You know, Lenny was, I would say, I think he was a senior like my freshman year or something like that. Or, you know what I mean? Just those, when I think about those, you know what I mean? Those experiences, those brothers who were coming back from a college and grabbing up, you know what I mean? Some young dudes who never thought, heard, or seen a college in real life, you know what I mean? What it did for us, you know, and the impact that it had on us, you know what I mean? That's why we do it. That's why we in the space we in doing the work what we doing now.
And I want to say too, before you guys wrap up or do whatever, a lot of our guys for those at least 3 years, they have good grades because I wasn't really playing that stuff with grades, you know. And there's a couple of them that got left off of not visiting Brockport. So you know what I'm saying? Hey, you didn't make the cut, bro, because you didn't do what you're supposed to do. And I kept it real with them, man. I kept it real with them. And a lot of them had good grades, man. A lot of them, you know, even up to this day, very successful, doing their thing on the outside, you know. And I just say, man, I know my man Lomax used to be mad. Hey, Lomax, shout out to you, man. You know, this is gonna be a flashback. We used to kill you guys, man. Lord Wilson, Lord have mercy.
Yo, don't be like that, man. Don't.
I know. Lomax is still my guy. You know
Shout out to Dr. Lomax.
Yeah, Doc.
You can talk about Lomax, just don't talk about Wilson. Nah.
Hey,
Much love, Lomax.
Yeah, man.
So Vincent, I did have a question, you know, that I just wanted to kind of expand on a little bit. But what are some of the misnomers that, you know, about the public defender's office that you hear in the community? Because I know, like, a lot of times when you watch these law shows and, you know, things like that, and people are like, oh man, I got a public defender. Like, it's, you know, there's at this point, you know, you're going to lose your case, right? You know, so what are some of those misnomers that you're hearing in the community? And then, you know, what are you all doing to kind of dispel that and, you know, bring some more awareness to a lot of the positive things that your department is doing?
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, when I was coming up, you know, the most notable one is that there were offices full of public pretenders, you know, that you need to get a real attorney. And, you know, I'm one of the high ranking administrators in the office. I sit right next to Julie Cianco, who is the public defender of the Monroe County Public Defender's Office. And, you know, during my first 6 months there, got a chance to talk to about 85% of the staff members when they were free, you know, and weren't busy, you know, in the courtrooms or what have you, or just having doorway meetings with them when they come to meet me. I would go meet them where they're at, and you know, just looking on the wall, right? And we have people from Notre Dame, from Albany, Syracuse, Cornell, Buffalo University, North Carolina, so on and so forth, from all around the state, all around the nation, actually. And these folks have gone to the same schools that these private attorneys from these other law firms locally have gone through. And you know, and one of the things I try to tell individuals is that, you know, it's a numbers game, right? We all know that public defense. What made public defenders, I think, seemingly ineffective is the caseload, right? So back in 1964, right, the riots, right, July 1964 riots, right there by Hanover Housing, Joseph Avenue. That riot there within that community has spawned so much change. You know, that from that riot, Kodak started hiring Black employees, Xerox, a lot of notable companies, and started creating a legacy of opportunity within our city. A lot of folks coming up from the South, teachers start coming up, going to RCSD. You start seeing the city education kind of change a bit, right? Because you start seeing Black and brown teachers that look like us holding the line and holding that standard. And so when we finally did get a public defender's office, a dedicated public defender's office, spearheaded by individuals like Mildred Johnson, right, who never had any formal training whatsoever, but found herself in the courtroom defending families. In her work that she did with Fight Village, led to the founding of the Public Defender's Office and the hiring of the first Black public defender in 1968. I found a headline about it, and it says, he understands the Negro. Might as well said he understands the N-word, right? But the whole article was basically about, how much money he made and what house he lives in, not his work or his prowess in the courtroom. But to help change that, is to continue to push out into communities, and so that's part of my job as well too. And I said earlier, I don't think I'd be able to do this job if it was just office work. Along with pushing out into the community, I'm pushing out into the schools, inviting students to the office to take a tour. Up until now, we've never had students in the office outside of being a client, right? But like not as a field trip where they can really stretch their mind's eye to see themselves in the legal field. And so coming up actually on the 18th of next week, we have School 12. We have 8th graders coming through. I just had School Without Walls folks come through. We have a handful of students coming through, about 18 of them as part of the EMCC program. And they're going to be shadowing attorneys. We also are, to help change the narrative, we're pushing into those community spaces, sharing about knowing their rights, helping individuals understand the code of law and what they need to do to exercise their rights, around the 4th and 56th Amendment right, pleading the 5th, right to speedy trial, a right to attorney, so on and so forth, and just making it plain, not even using the jargon, like, when cops talk to you, say nothing. You're not about to talk yourself out of that ticket or that situation. Ask for your lawyer. That's when all the questions stop. If it doesn't stop, they're infringing upon your rights. You keep asking for that lawyer, and then you wait until your day in court, and you'll have a better chance of getting your fair shake on in your day in court. But really helping to educate. But beyond that too, we're not official yet. I don't mind talking about it, but one of the things that I've also do with this work is I've taken over the internship program for the office, because my intention is to help create a new pipeline within the office to help turn the existing school to prison pipeline on its head. When I told this to Julie, she was over the moon about it. She said, "This is exactly what I want." So we partnered with RCSD, and we're looking to sign. I created a memo of agreement. Sorry, there's MOA. I created an MOA, and the program is going to be called Defenders of Tomorrow. But I'm going to pause a bit, and I'm going to actually call it the Mildred Johnson's Defenders of Tomorrow program, to honor Mildred Johnson, whose work again led to the creation of the Public Defender's Office. Because up until that time, we had public defenders, but they weren't defending clients every single day. It was like private attorneys that would do public defense work, and so she's like, "No, we need an actual public defender's office, like dedicated public defenders." And so that's when they would get slammed with all these cases, like 500 cases a year, each attorney. And so the pinnacle case, which caused, I believe it was the Gideon Wainwright case, which one made sure that clients were able to get representation. But then also most recently, it was the Harrell Herring case that now put a cap on the amount of cases that public defenders could take. So about 150 felonies a year, about 300 misdemeanors a year, where before it was skyrocketed and they were slammed. And you hear it all the time. I mean, you heard it most notably in the Cleve Browder story, where his public defender was like, "Yeah, there's like audio on the documentary showing like he's a public defender." So that kind of creates that bad stigma, they're not going to be able to dedicate your time. And that's where it came from. Not that they were inadequate, but that they were getting slammed. But then I'm also looking at too, private attorneys, they have the option of declining your case, right? Whereas public defenders, we can't decline your case. And so we do this work, and I'm like I'm an attorney, right? We do this work, but the public defender's office and attorneys that are public defenders in the office or serving as assistant public defenders in the office, they do this a lot, every day, consistently. And so, in theory, you would think they'll be better at the job doing it every day, consistently at a higher level than a private attorney who can say, you know what, I don't want this case. Right? Public defenders, we can't deny cases. We can't be like, you know what, I don't want that. I don't want that petty larceny case. I don't want that CPW2. We have to take it. And I think, you know, consistently doing that work makes you a sharper advocate and a sharper attorney.
Yeah, I just want to say, man, that's why I give much respect to the public defender's office because of that reason, particularly. And then I do want to call out Danielle Ponder because I believe she was in the defender's office at you know, in the beginning of her career. So definitely want to, you know, shout her out, and all countless others, you know, that were also part of that who said, you know what, because I think the other part of it too, Vincent, is you know, pay, right? I mean, private attorneys can, again, they can choose their cases and choose that dollar
that price.
Yeah. For public defenders, you know, man, that's I mean, I believe they're both doing God's work, but this is special. You know what I'm saying? To be able to take them cases on like that.
Yeah, and you know, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm not sure if you had another point. I apologize. You know, when I interviewed and I sat there, it wasn't a regular interview. It wasn't like a tell me a time you learned something, circle back and did it, and then it wasn't like that. Like, you know, those typical stuffy kind. It was more like, hey, tell us about yourself. And I mean, it was a very emotional interview for me during that time when I was interviewing for this position. And again, I knew a bunch of people on the panel, and I reminded them of who they were and the impact that they had. And I think, you know, reminding them that if they didn't know, it was definitely served as a reminder, or at least confirmation for them that what we do today, the things we do today, they echo through time. And I'm looking at an example of the work that I did, because not only did I keep my nose clean, but I made something of myself, but also created opportunity for other people to follow behind, you know, as I move through the world. And so that's kind of like my mantra in the office, and really speaking to especially the new attorneys as well. And it's not just enough about creating diversity in office, but also helping attorneys that, you know, new attorneys both in the field of practice, but also new attorneys that are new to Rochester. I was very fortunate to you know, those connections are powerful. And one of the connections that I made in this work when I was in Pittsburgh was connecting with Keisha James and Shane Wiegert of the Anti-Racist Curriculum Project during their time at Pathstone and now at CCSI. And I had them come in to do a history of Rochester and Monroe County, the good, the bad, the ugly, and how we can move forward. And they spoke about Red Lion. They spoke about, you know, Mildred Johnson and Dr. Walter Cooper, right? And Fight and you know, and everyone else in between that had, and I forgive me, I don't mean to, you know, leave anyone out when I say that, but there was a lot of people that were in that space, you know, helping to ensure equity for Black and brown folks. And not even just Black and brown folks, because you know, right now it's not always about Black and brown folks, but it's about the have and have not. You know, people are not able to afford attorneys for any number of reasons, not necessarily that they're poor, but, and I hate the term indigent. I just hate that term, but, you know, but really, again, humanizing individuals, right? Seeing their humanity, showing you mine, and then demanding more from each other, because we're all just having a human experience here. And so it's really just been a whirlwind in trying to create opportunity for people, you know, taking over that the internship program, and then now coupled with bringing 8th through 12th graders as part of the Defenders of Tomorrow program. They'll come to the office, and then hopefully they'll be inclined to go to college to do pre-law. I bring them back for their internship. They go back out, go to grad school. I bring them back in for their internship. Then they go back out and they try to apply for a job. And I'm also on the hiring committee. So, you know, that through line is there. And it's just, that's the work. That's the diversity work. And it's not just Black and brown folks we're trying to have in office, which we are, because 90% of our clients are Black and brown, are Black people, really, you know. But it's creating that diversity of thought right? And helping individuals to leverage their platform as advocates in their experiences to ensure that our clients get the full representation in the courtroom. And then also we have public defenders that have gone on to become judges. The Honorable Karen Bailey Turner herself was a public defender. Judge Lee, Judge Morris,
Judge Nicole Morris,
Lopez, Judge Michael Lopez, and a few others that I can't name off the top of my head right now. But not saying that they're going to show us blind or anything, but when you're a judge sitting on that bench and you come from a public defense background, that's in you, right? To kind of pause for a moment and to see that person that's in front of you, right, as a human being and not as a perp or a robber or a thug or a black perp. You know what I mean? Like, they see them as a human being.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a good spot for us to. Oh, did you have something, B?
Yes. You touched on a couple of things that I just wanted to, emphasize because I think they were significant. One, the whole public pretender thing. I thought, I thought about my experience, and I wanted to shout out. And I don't know if she's still in the office or not, but Jill Paperno.
No, she's not, but she's around. She's around. She works for Empire, I think Empire Justice now.
Yeah.
She was a public defender once upon a time.
Yeah, and she was an excellent one. She I was, so if you knew my dad, my dad had a lawyer on deck. But I was like, nah, this lady, I like this lady, and she believed in me. And so he was like, "You sure?" Like, I was like, "Listen, I'm telling you this. She believed in me, and I believe in her." Yeah. And it was just, she fought for me. And like you said, it was that humanity. So it wasn't, which goes deeper than the dollars and cents of a paid lawyer, because that's what you essentially. Hey, I'm gonna be the greatest lawyer in the world as long as the money's coming in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And even then, what I realized, the responsibility of anyone representing you, besides what happens in court, is to give you legal counsel and to try to get you the best adjudication as possible.
Absolutely.
So you can spend 5, 10, or however much you have to spend, yep, and end up with the same adjudication as somebody who was represented by a public defender, because the reality is they know you're coming based upon your perception of that office. You know what I mean? And they know the reality is that they can only do what they can do.
Yeah.
Which is no different than what a public defender can do. You know what I mean? And so, there's a lot to it. But I wanted to, say that was a great point, and emphasize it as well as, you know what I mean? If you do talk to Jill, tell her I said hello. She, you know what I mean? Amazing lady. And I was grateful to have her in my corner. With that said, we gonna get ready to wrap it up.
Time flies fast when you're on the show, man.
yeah, it definitely flies. So Vince, we always close out with shout outs. So if there's anybody that you want to shout out, go ahead, feel free. Shout them out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would like to shout out obviously the Bannister family. I keep them definitely in my prayers, lifting them up. I had a chance to see Simeon earlier last July or August or so, when he was at the Urban League of Rochester, when Desmond Tutu's daughter was speaking. He mentioned then that his mom wasn't doing too well, and so I was lifting him up in prayer there too. But I'm definitely praying for both him and the family, and all those that know and love Miss Bannister and the Bannister family. I'd like to give a shout out to my wife, obviously, holding me down. Got 3 kids, man. So, when I'm at work, I'm at home, or vice versa, and we don't do childcare. So it's like, tag teaming. You know what I mean? You gotta you tag me and tag you out. But definitely, I couldn't do this work if it wasn't for her. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for her and her family. And so I really count it all joy. But just everyone that supports me in this work, I give a shout out to all those folks. Thank you.
So, Brewski, you want to go there?
It's right here. I'm gonna do a Kareem. I want to give a shout out to Shatoya. I ain't gonna do it. I ain't gonna do it. Hey, sis, I ain't playing them games. Like Brother French said, man. Shout out to the Bannister family. Dr. Mother Bannister, Queen Mother, man, is amazing person. I've when she was the principal, a lot of people didn't know I was connected to her, and I remember the day she introduced me, man. There was some people that was talking smack, and they didn't know, and I was right in their present. And when she introduced me as her son on stage, boy, whew, if some people could have creeped under the chair, they would have creeped on her. I never said anything to her about certain situation. You know what I'm saying? And before that, she was always supporting us as bros at Brockport. Mr. Bannister, he was amazing. All of them, man, supported. I got the blueprint, man, from Queen Mother. From the first time I went to Ghana, I told her I was going to Ghana. Told me to go check out her establishment she has down there and where she bought land. And she just gave me her blueprint, man. And I took it and I rolled with it. I used to come back and talk to her about, how I'm feeling about certain things. And she used to ask me how I'm feeling, if there's a place I could see myself staying, and what I'm saying about Africa, man. And she was one of the pilot, man, of my life, having me do the work that I do, other than, my grandparents, amazing individual, man. And it's crazy. I lost two amazing person in less than 2 weeks. I didn't say 2 weeks, yeah. I lost two amazing person, man. I lost Dr. Moran, now Queen Mother, and the countless, I was sitting here, man. I was texting some young ladies. She tried to bring that all back on campus. She tried. She didn't succeed at it. But, man, I tell you, the bunch of girls that she had on campus that time, man, was amazing. And I just text all of them and sending pictures, man. And all of them is like, wow, they broken up over it, man. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Simeon, man, and Ethan, man. Me, I'm always here for you guys. Our legacy will live on, man. Shout out to Brock. Shout out to Marah family. Shout out to you, brothers. Brother French, shout out to you as well, and your family as well, And shout out to everybody else.
No. I want to shout out, of course, to my wife and to my kids and to family. Steve, why you gotta smile like that? I'm trying to be serious.
I'm gonna let you live, man.
Yeah, want to shout them out, man. I definitely want to shout out my daughter this past weekend, man. Had an incredible basketball tournament experience, man, and made it to the championship. And we didn't get what we wanted, man. But one thing that I will say is, man, them girls, played and definitely had heart. And definitely had sportswomanship. So I want to say that. My son, same thing with him. He got another basketball game coming up, but I'm just really glad that we have these opportunities to be able to put things that are going to help them to grow and to supplement what we're already doing at home. And then, there's a lot of things I can shout out right now, but I want to focus on definitely shouting out Queen Mother and, just hearing it today. Like it's almost like I'm avoiding it. Like I was telling B earlier, like I heard it. I was in my office. I kind of sat down for a minute and I went back to work because I just couldn't sit with it yet. But at some point you have to sit with it. But definitely want to shout out to my bros, our bros, Tom, Simeon, Ethan. Love y'all dudes, man, for sure. And y'all got a whole community behind you. And I know that you also have your family behind you as well. So definitely know that, man. We're keeping y'all in our prayers and just putting our arms around y'all.
Listen, shout out to, again, I'm just echoing, man, at this point. But before there was Alpha, man, me and Simeon was walking home from Douglas together. You know what I mean? That's been my brother for 30 years, man. 30 years. You know what I mean? So and I love A5A. Y'all, you know what I mean? If you know me, you know I love A5A. But before there was A5A, man, that was my brother, man. Shout out to Ethan, man. We like he was our little brother. You know what I mean? It was, I shared the story here before about how Mama Bannister, man, she saved my life. Made the phone call to my mom. I wasn't feeling good at school. You know what I mean? And my mom was like, you know what? He been complaining all week. I'm gonna take him. Take him to the emergency. And again, that phone call home, when I just asked her to stay in her office instead of having to go down to lunch. I just didn't feel good. I was like, I don't want to go down to the lunchroom. Can I just stay in the office? And she called my mom home, and that phone call saved my life. You know what I mean? So, man, I'm forever indebted to her, and you know what I mean? So my brothers, man, Ethan, you know what I mean? Simeon, you already know what it is, man. Big bro Tommy, we here, we praying for y'all. Man, we love y'all. Shout out to my amazing wife, man. Again, to echo again, I'm just echoing, man, what Vince said, man. I can't do or be any of whatever I am without, her holding me down. So, I appreciate you. Love you. And I'm gonna let Kareem live this week. You know what I mean? Just this 1 week though. Just 1 week. You know what I mean? Shout out to my boys who make the sacrifice. You know what I mean? For me to be able to do what I do. Shout out again to all you brothers, man. You amazing brothers that continue to do amazing things. You know what I mean? Brother Vince, thank you for coming on and just sharing the amazing work that you're doing. You know what I mean? Just continue to do, all the amazing things you're doing and making this space, this community, this world, you know what I mean, better because of, we have a Vincent French in it. You know what I mean? So thank you again, brother. And
thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you for everybody that's watched, support, you know what I mean? And again, my ask of you all is to send love and light, you know what I mean, towards the Bannister family during this time.
Thank you. Ike.
Yeah, so the thing about going last is all you can really say is he took my answer, right? So, at this point, it definitely is an echo, man. But Brother French, man, we definitely appreciate you coming on the show. And, I just, again, want to give kudos to the work that you're doing within the community. And, obviously, we've, met a couple times in different settings. So, I look forward to continuing to do that work and anything that we can do to help and support from the city's perspective with the internships that you have going on. Obviously we have our summer opportunity program within that age group too that we can support. Let's talk and build around that a little bit more as well. And I just kind of, wrap it up and just, saying this one thing about Queen Mother. And, she just had such an infectious spirit that, there's no way that you could be around her and be in her presence and feel bad. Like she always brought that, had such a positive and warm and welcoming energy, man. So, that's one thing that, I think this world is going to miss, and I say world because she's so much bigger than Rochester, right? She's
bigger than Rochester.
She's got a worldwide presence. So, she will be missed, definitely echo, send the condolences out to, the fam and Ethan, Simeon, Tom, man, we definitely are thinking about you all. And our hearts go out to you and your family right now. So, I just want to wrap up the show by saying shout out to all Black people doing Black things in a Black way, man. Shout out to the motherland. As we move into, we move through March and get ready for the warmer weather, man. Make sure you guys get out and support some local Black businesses in your area, wherever you're listening from.
Black businesses.
Black businesses, yeah. Not
Black
indigenous
businesses,
to
Kareem.
just Black businesses, right? So, shout out to everybody that tuned into the show. If you didn't leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. And we look forward to bringing some more content to you all in the future.
Ike, what's your son restaurant name, Ike?
My son's restaurant?
Yeah.
Oh, 809.
809, baby.
Yeah,
809
Sports Bar.
Go check it out.
809.
Over there.
Tell Gabe Bro Talk sent you.
Yeah. Bro Talk sent you, man.
Might get an extra empanada or something.
I don't know about that.
Well, Kareem gonna be there tomorrow if that's the case.
You know what I'm saying?
Listen, as soon as we cut off the show, Kareem gonna pull out an
Best Spanish food in Rochester, you guys. Check them out, man.
Yeah, 809. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Jimmy, for having me. Peace and love, y'all.
All right.